making it up. And the tragic thing is that Bob McHugh actually believes that's the explanation for his experiences. The tragic thing for McHugh, even more tragic, is that the God spot theory has been disproven. It has no validity whatsoever. It hasn't been replicated. The first suggestions were based upon faulty reasoning altogether. And yet this becomes the explanation for the fact that in a tragic moment, ideas flowed into him and he had power beyond himself to give comfort to a family in need. How does the God spot explain that? It's tragic, because he believes such nonsense. And yet this is precisely what our culture is imbibed with. It's all nurture or nature and all contained simply within the brain. That's the explanation, full stop. Well, I have to question materialism to begin with. Materialism has a very difficult time explaining the phenomenal quality or qualia of our mental experiences, and is contrary to the notion that we can reason based upon rational considerations at all. I mean, consider if materialism and naturalism is true and that's all there is, then everything we've got is the result of evolution, of survival of the fittest. And what we're actually fitted for is simply surviving. Well, pray tell, how is it possible that we're even conscious? And even more difficult, how could we have reasoning processes with abstract physics and abstract mathematics? How did evolution fit us to do those kinds of things? I'm sure that chasing down the bears in the forest required us to be able to figure out how far we were going, but I don't think it requires quantum physics. And so I would question whether this type of an approach to life has much to offer at all. So to the materialist, the naturalist, I would suggest, come and see. Affect and feelings, in fact, are absolutely essential to any rational cognitive process. Affect and feelings are the basis of cognitive decisions and are necessary for cognitive functioning based upon recent and ongoing research. Now I'm going to make a suggestion. As counterintuitive as it may seem, even our most rigorous reasoning rests at bottom upon human intuition. For reasoning, including formal logic and mathematics, cannot proceed without at least some basic axioms and assumptions, derivation procedures, formation and transference rules, and the rules of inference that cannot be proven by the same rigorous reasoning. These facets of reasoning can be justified only as basic givens which have the property of just seeming right, or that lead to explanation and consistency of a range of experience and data. A number of neurophysiologists, such as Antonio Damasio and Oliver Sacks, based upon both laboratory and clinical studies, argue that persons lacking properly functioning emotions are incapable of ability to fully cognize and are incapable of making rational decisions in cases involving their own welfare. Such decision-making, in this view, is the result of a number of complex interactions among a number of neural subsystems, and rational behavior, especially in practical decision-making, is dependent on neural subsystems associated with emotional processing. Among the components involved with emotion are the amygdala and part of the limbic system. What emerges in these studies is that certain sorts of rationality cannot function in the absence of emotions and feelings at a very basic level, even a subconscious level. Without a properly functioning emotional capacity, the decision-making landscape is flat, and there's always less than sufficient reason to prefer one set of goals or decision over any other. Now, various structures in the brain, such as tonically active neuron sites in the caudate, directly integrate reason inputs from the prefrontal cortex, where we do all of our reasoning, with an emotional input from the amygdala. So what I suggest to the naturalist is that the view that began with Plato's Republic, chapter 10, that emotions are at war with reason, just isn't true. Reason presupposes and requires emotion, feeling, and affect. In fact, anybody who studies the brain will see that we can't reason at all without it. Studies show that decisions of any kind cannot be made without the evaluative abilities of emotions as to what matters to us. So to them I say, come and see. Trust your emotion, because you can't trust your reason unless you do so. Now, there are other things that I would say about secular materialism, but I don't think there's time. In fact, how much time is there? About up. I'm just going to blow off the evangelicals at this point, because I don't have time. So I'll open up for questions.